Do you know what's so fascinating about the Vulcan Centaur? This rocket, which boasts up to 6 solid rocket boosters like a beast, has not only completed its third mission in recent months, but also secured new National Security Space Launch or NSSL contracts, and at prices that SpaceX could easily undercut. While United Launch Alliance estimates $214 million per flight, SpaceX remains at $143 million. And that's despite the pressure from Blue Origin's BE-4 engines, the 30th of which has already been delivered. Let's dive into the updates from past flights, the solid rocket booster accident, all the way to Dream Chaser and Amazon Kuiper. A rocket update that shows how tough the competition is in spaceflight. My name is Serwin, and this is Mars Chronicles. Let's take off. Let's start with the previous flights of the Vulcan Centaur, which has performed impressively since its debut in January 2024. Even though not everything went perfectly. The first flight, CERT-1, carried the Peregrine lander from Astrobotic and a Celestis memorial payload, a milestone that initiated certification for NSSL missions. The Centaur upper stage demonstrated its restart capability, and despite the failure of Peregrine on its way to the moon, which had nothing to do with the rocket, it was a complete success. In October 2024 came CERT-2 with a mass simulator that carried experiments for future Centaur technologies. Here came the crucial point. About 37 seconds after launch, the nozzle of one solid rocket booster fell off, which led to asymmetric thrust. The rocket tilted slightly, but the control system and main engines compensated with an extended burn of 20 seconds, and it still reached orbit nominally. The Space Force praised the system's robustness, and the investigation concluded it was a manufacturing issue. United Launch Alliance fixed that, and the third flight in August 2025 with United States Space Force 106, including navigation technology satellite 3 for the next global positioning system generation, was a complete success. The first national security space launch flight, and the debut of the VC-4S configuration with 4 SRBs. The Vulcan can lift off with 2, 4, or 6 solid rocket boosters. Speaking of engines, Tori Bruno recently posted on X that Blue Origin has delivered the 30th BE-4, a milestone for their partnership. Considering that the first 6 B-4s were used for the 3 previous missions, Vulcan uses 2 per flight. That means United Launch Alliance has enough in stock for 12 more missions. That's smart because the BE-4 is liquefied natural gas, based, efficient, and reusable in design, even though the Vulcan is an expendable rocket. It shows how United Launch Alliance is catching up, but also the pressure. Blue Origin is struggling with New Glenn, and United Launch Alliance has to deliver to stay competitive with SpaceX. On the topic of reusability, United Launch Alliance is planning what's called smart reuse. They want to detach only the most expensive part of the rocket, the engines, after the mission, recover them, and reuse them. That doesn't sound smart to me. It sounds like more effort and unnecessary complexity because that part of the rocket is specifically designed not to come off under any circumstances. But then it gets separated and falls back to Earth with parachutes, and there is no sign whatsoever of this reuse happening anytime soon. I'm sticking my neck out here and saying ULA will attempt the first so-called smart reuse trials no earlier than 2027. Then they'll realize that it's complete nonsense and give up on it. Hopefully I'm completely wrong, and they surprise us with fresh agility and unusual efficiency. But I just can't imagine it, no matter how hard I try. The latest awards from October 2025 highlight how expensive United Launch Alliance is in comparison. The Space Force assigned SpaceX 5 missions for $714 million, which is about $143 million per flight, while United Launch Alliance gets 2 for $448 million, a hefty $214 million per mission. That's 50% more than SpaceX and an increase compared to United Launch Alliance's previous prices of $119 million in 2023. They even brought the Vulcan Centaur to market, among other things, to become more competitive. because Vulcan is a single-use rocket, while SpaceX reuses its boosters. The Phase 3 contracts take upgrades into account, but it shows the cost pressure. SpaceX flies 4 of them with the Falcon Heavy, which is perfect for heavy payloads like Wideband Global Satellite Communications 12 or secret missions. United Launch Alliance gets United States Space Force 88 with Global Positioning System 3 F4 and National Reconnaissance Office Launch 88. Solid but less. Blue Origin is not yet certified to participate in these bids, so they're out for now. But they have the potential to push United Launch Alliance completely out of business, although that wouldn't be in their interest since they would otherwise lose their only customer for the BE-4 engines. Overall, SpaceX holds the majority in Phase 3 with United Launch Alliance coming in second. And that could change the spaceflight landscape where cost efficiency matters a lot. Let's look into the future of the Vulcan Centaur because it has some very exciting missions ahead. 2025 will bring Global Positioning System 3 Space Vehicle 09 in November. We will stream this launch. So keep an eye out for United States Space Force 87 with GSAP satellites in Q4 and the first Kuiper batch with 45 satellites on VC6L. This is the debut of the configuration with 6 SRBs, the Beast, optimized for low Earth orbit missions like Amazon's Constellation. Kuiper needs to get their satellites into orbit quickly, and United Launch Alliance has 38 flights for the Constellation. A billion-dollar deal that keeps them alive. Kuiper must launch 50% of their full constellation by July 30th, 2026 to keep their FCC license. That means they have to launch a total of 1,618 satellites in the next 9 months. So far, they've launched 153 satellites with the first 6 operational launches, meaning they need to launch around 163 satellites per month on average. Write in the comments if you think that's possible. I'm curious to see what you say. 2026 will be packed. United States Space Force 57, United States Space Force 43, Wideband Global Satellite Communications 11, more Kuiper software-defined radio satellites for missile tracking, and finally Dream Chaser Tenacity in Q4 on VC4L. The first Dream Chaser mission we've also been waiting impatiently for years. This one is delayed because Sierra Space is behind in developing the spacecraft, but it could be a game changer for International Space Station resupply. And before anyone shouts that the International Space Station will be decommissioned in 2030, yes, that's true. But by then, a number of other stations will have gone into operation, all of which will need to be supplied. Overall, Vulcan could have completed 20 or more missions by the end of 2026, including National Reconnaissance Office payloads. But what are the risks? A very obvious risk for Vulcan is the newly operational New Glenn and of course Starship. Both will be certified for national security space launch missions and will undercut its prices and outperform its capabilities. United Launch Alliance is aiming for 2 launches per month, which is ambitious but achievable if they can reduce costs. Currently, they haven't quite reached that cadence yet. You're probably wondering why United States authorities continue to contract United Launch Alliance when there's a cheaper alternative. Excellent question. That goes back to the expensive lesson they've had to learn painfully over the past 30 years. It's about preventing any single player from gaining a monopoly, which would have catastrophic consequences. With 3 successful flights, 30 BE-4 engines, and 9 national security space launch deals, Vulcan has shown United Launch Alliance will remain in the race for now, even though they are more expensive than SpaceX and face hurdles like the solid rocket booster accident. With Kuiper and Dream Chaser just around the corner, 2026 could be their year. What do you think about the potential of the Vulcan? Write it in the comments. If you enjoyed this Vulcan update, subscribe to Mars Chronicles and leave a thumbs up. Many thanks to all channel members and Patreon supporters. If you also want early access to our videos, you can find all the information about it below in the video description. My name is Sirwan, and this was Mars Chronicles. Thanks for tuning in. Per aspera ad astra.